This
111th.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now. I'd like to welcome you all to the 111th annual meeting of Chevy Chase Village. And the 111, I gotta say, my husband and I immediately said to each other, that's the product of two prime numbers, 3 times 37. This is like nerd alert. But before we begin, I want to call your attention to our second annual Junior Art Show, the works of art by children in grades kindergarten through 8, displayed throughout Village Hall. The art will remain displayed through April 27th with a closing reception at 3:30, and this was organized by the Community Relations Committee. So we thank you for that. And the flower arrangements that you see in the reception area and the meeting room were provided by the Garden Club of Chevy Chase and sourced from yards in the village. So thank you, Garden Club. It's customary at the annual meeting for the chair to provide an oral overview of where the village stands, as well as highlight some of our activities over the previous year and what to expect in the year ahead. The state of the village continues to be awesome. I say every year that we are grateful and aware that we are among the most fortunate people on earth. Board Treasurer Gary Crockett will elaborate on our fine financial situation in his remarks later. And as usual, please refer to all the written reports for more information, but I want to highlight a few things. In terms of changes at the board, last year Lou Morseberger was elected as vice chair and Bob Goodwin stepped into the secretary position. And Bob has recently informed us that he is moving to the Eastern Shore, a great loss for us, but a gain for him and his wife Judy and their kids and grandkids. I want to say how very much the board and staff and neighbors will miss Bob. He's a thoughtful, dedicated leader, a wise and kind educator, and he's been serving the public as a village elected official for 12 years without fear or favor. He has always looked out for doing the right thing for the village and its residents and staff. And we will celebrate him more at the June meeting, his last meeting. And but I'm joined by the board and staff in thanking Bob for his service. We will miss him, and we will arrange lots of reciprocal visits to Easton. And when he moves, there will be an open board position. His vacancy will be an appointment by us, the other members of the board. Our election code provides a process for residents to apply to be appointed to the board to fill Bob's term until next year's election. Bob is currently our only board member from the east side of Connecticut. So we especially want East Siders to throw their hat in the ring for this board opening. It has been so valuable to have people from the other side and their point of view. So anyway, as you know, this past year we had numerous proposed legislative matters from the county and the state to engage with, and we were so very lucky that Lou Morseberger stepped up as the tireless board lead on them. First, the planning board's attainable housing strategies, a sweeping proposal that was ultimately denied by the county council. This morphed into the More Housing Now legislative package, which potentially impacts just 10 properties within the village compared to 162 that would have been impacted by the Attaining Housing Strategies legislation. Another legislative initiative you may have been following was the technical amendment to state-issued authority, the Maryland legislation led by lead sponsor Delegate Jared Solomon, who, surprise, is here, passed during the state's legislative session that ended just earlier this month, and it will now go to the governor to be signed. And since we have our surprise visit by Delegate Solomon, I thought I'd give him a thank you, to shout out for working with us, and an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the legislation. Delegate Solomon.
Thank you very much, Chair Leonard and Vice Chair Morseberger. I want to thank both of you and Shana, your incredible town manager. I think we spent more than a year actually working on this legislation, and it was a direct result, frankly, of the incredible engagement of the village of Chevy Chase. We actually have 8 other municipalities that we represent in District 18. And I should have mentioned Delegate Jared Solomon. I have the pleasure of getting to be one of your 4 representatives in Annapolis. It's myself, Delegate Emily Shetty, Delegate Aaron Kaufman, and Senator Jeff Waldstreicher. And we have 9 municipalities that we actually represent in our district that were sort of in a similar situation. we needed to go back and clarify really some law that had been on the books since 2006, but created a little bit of ambiguity around what did the law mean by single-family home or single-family building. And in the situation that we were in, obviously with some significant changes at the county level around zoning and the really intense conversation that we know is still ongoing around housing, it was really important to the four of us working in concert with our colleagues in the neighboring district just across Wisconsin, District 16, where the only other municipality outside of that area is Tacoma Park, who worked with us, making sure that we really clarified what was in this law and that we were working collaboratively with our municipalities, with the county, with the planning board to make sure that your authority, that again has been on the books for almost 20 years, gets to remain intact. And so what this bill at its core is about is making sure that we clarify that for housing units under four and under, so essentially, single family, a duplex, a triplex, and a quadplex, which is what had been under discussion with the council in Rockville, that your municipal authority, the village, the town, the town of Kensington, and so on and so forth, still had the ability to be able to create regulations around that. So again, things that had long been settled, but because of the now tweaked definition and the look at sort of what was meant by single family, we wanted to make sure that that maintained, that stayed intact and that was strengthened. And this piece of legislation did that. We passed it, I think unanimously, actually, through both chambers, through the House and the Senate. And as the chair mentioned, it is sitting on the governor's desk. We expect it to be signed. There's bill signing tomorrow, probably at some point in the next couple of weeks. They're just kind of going through all the bills. We would not have been able to get it through, frankly, without the incredible collaboration. And your municipal attorney as well was also fantastic. Again, it was a real collaboration with our partners on the council. I want to recognize Councilmember Friedson, who is a great partner, as well as Council President Stewart. And we were able to get that through. This was a tough session. This was a real bright spot. We want to make sure, again, that our municipality is so important to us. The work you all do is really critical. The more local it gets, sometimes the harder it is. And we know housing is probably one of the toughest issues to navigate in our county. And this was really important to us. There's just couple other things I want to mention very briefly. It was a tough session, particularly in the budget, but we prioritized bringing resources back for our community. And I wanted to just highlight, we heard a lot from people around the proposed cuts to developmental disability access. We restored almost everything, about $300 million to that. We know how important that was to communities across Maryland, but particularly our community. We have some incredible providers in this area that do amazing work for families across the spectrum. We brought money back for Strathmore, which is dealing with some roof renovations that need to be fully funded. $1 million for the Noise Library. I have two little ones, and a lot of people in this community take advantage of noise, and we're going to push that renovation forward in partnership with the county. And we brought some additional money back for Purple Line pedestrian safety. That we're really excited that the county is getting a specific bucket of money for, which I know is obviously really important to everybody as well. So thank you for the partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to say a couple of words, and we're really excited. And you're all welcome to join us for the bill signing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're on the lookout for other future legislative plans. We monitored legislation introduced on behalf of Governor Wes Moore called the Governor's Housing for Jobs Act that could have greatly preempted counties and municipalities' housing authority based on regionally determined housing gaps. We worked with the Maryland Municipal League to submit a series of concerns and proposed revisions. Ultimately, the bill was drastically modified in response to our concerns, and it never received a full vote before the end of the legislative session. But we anticipate a version of this bill will be reintroduced in the 2026 session. We're also preparing for the county's rewrite of the 1998 Friendship Heights Sector Plan. The board invited the county's planning staff to present information regarding the rewrite process, including the 2025-26 timeline and opportunities for our residents to engage. A newly written sector plan will create a vision for the future of Friendship Heights, the area that abuts the village just to the west. And you may know that due to all these legislative efforts at the county and state level, the board, along with several of our neighboring municipalities, authorized hiring a zoning attorney to monitor the legislation and assist with ensuring our interests are protected and our concerns adequately relayed to the county council, the planning board, and state legislators. Our zoning attorney's name is Michelle Rosenfeld, and we are so fortunate to have such a pro looking out for our interests. Rest assured that we will continue to monitor these areas for any future developments in the next legislative sessions. So what else were we up to this year? Some highlights. We did some park maintenance. The board authorized replacement of the perimeter fence around the Brookville Road Park. This replacement greatly enhances the appearance of this park and helps the people abutting the park. We maintained an important focus on stormwater management in the village, including earlier this year, the board authorized a capital project to install a trench drain along a portion of the block of Primrose Street between Connecticut and Brookville Road. The project also included replacement of the curbs, the gutter plan along the entire block, and resurfacing the roadway. And at our meeting last week, the board approved a plan to completely rebuild the roadway in this block because it was determined that it really needed substantial repairs to bring it up to current standards. And working with the Parks and Green Spaces Committee, we are nearing completion of the design work for the buffer area drainage project. This last phase has concerned snow removal operations and finalizing the planting and screening. And we look forward to advertising this project for construction bids early this summer, with construction starting later in the year. A board working group was established to assess the adequacy and appropriate use of village funds for projects to address stormwater challenges. The working committee included board treasurer Gary Crockett, board secretary and former board liaison to the Stormwater Committee Bob Goodwin, and board assistant secretary Linda Willard. Thank you all. Its final report was issued in September last year, and the working group concluded that there are sufficient reserves available to fund the slate of public projects in the pipeline to address known stormwater runoff concerns. And we'll keep monitoring this. And can you tell we're nearing completion of a major capital project to fully replace and convert the village's HVAC system. So the new system is in operation here in the post office, the police department, the administrative offices, and the systems that serve the public rooms will be operational by early June. We maintained the village's designation as a Tree City USA by the Arbor Foundation. And I have to read the proclamation so that we can continue our designation into 2025. Proclamation. Whereas Arbor Day is observed throughout the nation and world, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas since 2018, Chevy Chase Village has each year been designated a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and seeks to maintain the designation for the coming year. Now, therefore, on this 21st day of April 2025, we hereby proclaim and urge all citizens to support these efforts to protect our trees, woodlands, and support our community's urban reforestation. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. So that was required. In 2024, we planted 55 trees within village parks, green spaces, and along the public rights of way. This program allows us to maintain and expand the tree canopy in the village in spite of losing trees when they're aged or damaged. In fact, next month, the Public Works will plant another 22 trees in village rights of way, parks, and green spaces. And please keep in mind that we offer reimbursement of up to $125 per tree to residents who reforest with qualifying trees on their property. What else did we do? The block party subsidy authorized by the board, as recommended by Board Vice Chair Lou Morsberger, continues to be a success. Residents threw block parties this year, and the first one, or last year, and the first one this year is scheduled for later this month. The program reimburses residents up to $250 for block party expenses, and we have a total of $3,000 each fiscal year for this program. The board approved numerous contracts and amendments, including our revised contract for refuse and recycling collection, very important. The board also approved our continued participation in the county's hazard mitigation plan to ensure the village has access to resources in the event of a major disaster. But now let's talk about our excellent staff. A few highlights. We have a certificate of appreciation for William Abernathy for 30 years of service to the village. Could you come up? 30 years of service to the village. Hap has been on a leave of absence since last year following a stroke, and we wish him well and thank him for his 3 decades with the village. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. And then Boda.
One more. Try to not get the exit sign in it. There we go.
And we have a little gift and very much appreciation to you.
Thank you.
So good to see you tonight.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Police Chief John Neske completed his first full year as police chief. Do you even recognize him? Not in his police garb, during which he welcomed the community to support his work with the Special Olympics, and he represented the department both locally and internationally, which was totally cool. He facilitated a number of initiatives to enhance our ability to attract qualified police applicants, given the shortage of candidates in our region. Special thanks to the members of our public works staff, led by Director Anthony Young, for their snow clearing efforts following a series of snowstorms this past year, the first measurable snowfall in several years. Ellen Sands is not here, right? But she retired from the village last June after serving almost 14 years as permitting and code enforcement coordinator and then director of municipal operations. We miss Ellen. She has a very humble nature and resisted a more grand celebration of her service. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, financial matters update will be covered by Gary Crockett, our board treasurer, but I enjoy stealing his thunder every year by saying that we are in great fiscal shape. To end my oral report, I would like to honor the village residents we lost since our last annual meeting, and after I read their names, have a moment of shared silence in their memory. Sylvia Broderick of Grove Street, Joanne Nelson, formerly of Summerfield Road, Natalie Bramson, Montgomery Street, Charlie Steiner of Center Street. Thank you very much. As always, we are grateful to live in Chevy Chase Village. We're so grateful for the staff, for the honor of being on the board, for all the volunteer commission and committee members, for all the residents, for our neighbors and friends. Thanks. The next thing on the agenda is the report from our village manager.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our beautiful Village Hall, to those of you who are in the room, and of course to those who are joining us on our virtual feed as well. I'm honored to present my 16th annual report as village manager to the community. I also want to say a special welcome to our new residents who have joined us this evening. Thank you very much for coming out to learn more about your government in action. So thank you for joining us. So as I sat down to prepare this year's report, I noted that last year I remarked that one of the highlights of my job is that it is ever evolving and highly unpredictable. And certainly this past year was no exception. As you have already heard, a significant amount of time over the last year was dedicated to monitoring external agencies' efforts that stood to impact our very small residential community. And many of the things that make this such a desirable place to live, including access to metro, amenities, and major corridors, were the same factors that placed the village in the bullseye of both county and state level legislation that could have greatly impacted the character and the future of this community. And so it is my job as your village manager to alert the board and in turn village residents so that you are well informed about these efforts and know how that you can advocate to ensure that your voices are heard. So over the past year, we were one of the first communities to get deeply engaged, first on the Planning Board's Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative, followed by the More Housing Now legislative package introduced by the County Council. And it is clear that the concerns that were raised by the very residents of this community were impactful to the County Council's change of course as they looked at these rezoning efforts. But we know that diligence remains in order as the County Council continues its deliberation of the workforce housing legislation, and this will remain a priority for us in the year ahead. Related to this is the current rewrite of the Friendship Heights Sector Plan, which is an effort that will reshape the future of the Friendship Heights area, including Saks Fifth Avenue, which is located within the village. And we intend to closely monitor this process, but it will remain important for residents across the village, not just on the west side, to remain engaged and to share your thoughts and concerns through what will be a multi-year process. Over the last year, we also tracked the District Department of Transportation's now canceled proposal to install bike lanes along Connecticut Avenue. Chief Neske and I submitted testimony to the County Council in support of the County Police Department's expansion of its drone as first responder program to enhance the department's crime fighting abilities in the greater Bethesda Chevy Chase area. And while we focused on these external impacts, we also implemented various initiatives and projects within the village as well, including the replacement of the HVAC system here in the Village Hall and other capital maintenance projects in and around our beautiful historic hall. We also recently began a stormwater remediation project and roadway rehabilitation along the unit block of Primrose between Connecticut and Brookville. We maintained good fiscal management as evidenced by the clean audit we received for the fiscal year that ended June 30, while ensuring that we met the federal government's reporting requirements for our use of ARPA funds. And we secured outstanding funds due to the village from the United States Postal Service associated with their lease of the northern end of the hall, and from the Chevy Chase Land Company for their contractual obligation toward the ongoing maintenance of the buffer area. I want to give special thanks to my right-hand financial man, Dimitri Protos, our finance director, for all of his support and management of village finances and our HR functions. With assistance from our Director of Municipal Operations, Jacqueline Parker, we have also continued to liaise with outside organizations and agencies, including enhancing our role in the county's emergency management group, promoting the expeditious rebuild of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Western Avenue at Kirkside that was damaged beyond restoration in a fire in 23, and advocating for maintenance and improvements by the State Highway Administration for the state's rights of way along Brookville, Connecticut, and Wisconsin. Thank you to Jackie for all of your work in these areas, as well as your management of our numerous contracts, capital projects, parks and green spaces, and oversight of our local utility companies. Our public works department's continued maintenance of village sidewalks and their response to numerous winter storm events and summer storms that was unmatched. Special thanks to all of the staff led by Department Director Anthony Young for their continued service. And our permitting and code enforcement coordinator, Aurelio Baca Asher, continued his administration of our permitting operations and patrols of the village to ensure residents and contractors operate in compliance with the code and issue permits. A full list of the permits that were issued over the last year, including 202 building permits and 67 tree removal permits, are available on our website and will also be shown here on the screen. We welcomed a total of 13 new families to the village since last year's annual meeting, and many of these new residents are initially welcomed by our wonderful administrative and constituent services assistant, Jennifer Young, who not only manages our calendar of community events, she is responsible for producing our monthly newsletter and blast emails, but above all else, she keeps us really, really organized and professional. So thank you, Jennifer, for your hard work throughout this last year. Last but certainly not least, special thanks to Chief Neske for his forward thinking and new perspectives in leading our department. In just over a year, he has implemented initiatives to empower and engage our officers in new ways, modernize our functions, and enhance our hiring capability. He has represented our department locally and internationally, all while maintaining a great sense of humor. So in the year ahead, I intend to work with the board to update our fees and fines schedule, which has not been comprehensively updated and I checked this because I wasn't sure that I was reading it correctly, in 19 years. So I would say it's long overdue. We also hope to finalize a path forward for the purchase and ownership of the streetlight network that exists here in the village. And we look forward to the long-awaited buffer area drainage project to restore this unique green space to its original glory. We are continuing to look for opportunities to enhance our competitiveness as a premier public service employer, and so we will also continue to hire and maintain the best of the best. As always, I want to end my report by thanking the board for its continued support. We truly could not do what we do without each and every one of you, and we really are appreciative to have such a supportive elective board. And I know from speaking with my peers locally and nationally that that is not always the case. So I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you. I also want to close by welcoming residents to contact us. If there's a question that you need answered, if there's information that you need to access, if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, please do not hesitate to reach out to our office. That is why we are here. And this outreach ensures that we are meeting residents' needs as we seek to preserve the legacy of this wonderful community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I typically also read our village council, who has a standing meeting on the third Monday of the month and could not join us. I will read her annual report as well. To the board and community, I am regretfully unable to be with you for the annual meeting. As a result, the village manager is presenting my report. During the past year, working closely with the village manager and department heads, I have prepared or reviewed a significant number of requests for bids, contracts, and extensions, and memoranda of understanding, including for the arborist, landscaping, and refuse and recycling services, as well as the village hall HVAC rehabilitation, the Primrose Street stormwater management project, and ongoing post office utility payment issues. I have assisted in the review of staff reports and the preparation of board resolutions with respect to variances and special permits, enforcement of stormwater and other building permit regulations, and with several personnel issues. I have continued to work with the village manager and a coalition of municipalities on the Pepco rate case, LED lighting, and related issues, and have taken part in detailed negotiations to reach agreement with Pepco on template language for municipal pole attachment agreements and sales agreements, which are in the final review phase. Another Pepco-related issue that arose this past year is the streetlight inventory, which has been more complicated than expected, with SHA unilaterally allocating streetlights in its rights of way to municipalities. Something we'll be talking with our delegate about very soon. I have provided legal advice to department heads with respect to numerous legal matters. This past year also involved many zoning-related issues, primarily with respect to both state and county bills concerning attainable housing and workforce housing, and a possible zoning text amendment. Michelle Rosenfeld, a zoning attorney, was engaged by the village to also work on these issues. A coalition of local governments, including the village, actively presented and defended municipal interests and was successful in obtaining the adoption of MCPG 11625, also referred to as HB 1167, which preserves municipal zoning powers. Finally, I'm pleased to report that there are no cases of any significance in litigation at this time. She buried the lead. As always, it is a pleasure to work with the village manager and village staff on the legal matters that come up during the year. Very truly yours, Sue Ellen Ferguson.
Great, thank you. We're so lucky. We have wonderful staff, and you really are the glue that holds it all together. We have the best village manager. So.
Appreciate that.
Next is a report on public safety by Chief Neske.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everyone. Year 2 already. So it sneaks up on you. So I'm going to dive right into it. I'm going to digress because it popped in my head. If you know this, great. If not, Google it. But Shayna there is our Sergeant Hulka, our big toe, so to speak. If you've ever seen the movie Stripes, you'll get the. I'm sorry, I digress very quickly. If I didn't say it, it would just eat at me the entire time. So I had to get that out. Thank you for your indulgence. I'm going to step into some stats first. So if you look at some of the numbers, just kind of going down, incident reports went down by 40%. And if you're wondering why that is, it's because we kind of reallocated or readjusted some of the reasons we wrote reports to make sure that the officers are using their time wisely and not writing reports that maybe don't necessarily need to be written. We're definitely writing things, incidents that need to be written, but we're trying to get out of the paper writing business and more into the patrolling business. Auto collisions were up 5%, residential alarms down 6%. Code enforcement checks were up 18%. So between the officers and Aurelio, we're out there looking to make sure permits are in place, things are being done in accordance with ordinances. They must be doing a decent job because the actual code enforcement violations are down 54%. So I like to think there's a correlation between those two numbers. If we look down, our violent crime, thank goodness, is almost non-existent. We didn't have any of those incidents. We did have we had 2 assaults in 2023, 0 in 2024. So that's a good trend. If we look at our larcenies, are basically thefts from auto especially, they are up 20%. So I will say that we were on track to be below until December 2nd, when we had a spree of 15 in one night on December 2nd. And I will just reiterate that every one of those vehicles were unlocked. So we were trending very well, and the December 2nd killed us. But we are still working on that. Police were trying to get the message out. Continue to lock your car doors and remove items. If you look at the current numbers, we are trending just about the same, maybe a little bit higher for 2025. But we also had 6 theft from autos from the Saks Fifth Avenue parking lot. And those had their windows broken. And the rule of thumb is usually you're not going to have your window broken if there's nothing inside. And all these cars had purses, bags, and computers inside. So you're going to get your window broken. So those 6 happened on 2 separate occasions at Saks. Auto thefts remained flat. Vandalisms were down 50%. One number that I'm very happy about is traffic citations, warnings, and equipment orders went up 19%. So we went from 416 in 2023 to 494, and that's just the outstanding work by the officers being out there, being vigilant, responding to residents' complaints about stop signs or speeding in areas. So I'm very appreciative for them to be out there and being active. 2024 in arrest, we had 2. One was back to Saks Fifth Avenue. One was a burglar at Saks Fifth Avenue. Multiple subjects ran down Wisconsin Avenue. One of our officers was able to apprehend one of them, and was covered by the county, so we handed him over to the county. The other was a stolen auto. But it was occupied, parked on the side of the road, and the officer responded out to it. We were able to get one juvenile suspect out of it. There's one that's not listed on here because they were handed over to MPDC, but it was a stabbing suspect from one of the metros. And the officers caught up to them at the Chevy Chase Circle. He was still armed. They were able to apprehend him without any use of force. So another outstanding job by the officers. We continue to work on our general orders. It's a long, arduous process, but we've been updating our general orders to an electronic version. We just got all the logins set, so we should be releasing those updated orders and to the officers in small batches so they actually read them. And that should be ongoing here shortly. One of the things that I talked about when I first got here was getting more involved with the community, getting the officers more involved with the community. That's in our community, that's community adjacent. Get them out there, get them face to face with people, forging bonds, forging relationships. And we've been able to do that. We've been out to All Saints preschool a couple times, having the kids come out, look at the cars, have them climb in it, spend some time with them. We've even had an officer that just stopped at a yard sale. And I don't know if they were actually shopping or not, or just in the community. I didn't ask if they bought anything. But again, it's just interacting. Halloween's a good example. Stopping by block parties, stopping by, on foot patrol during trick or treating. Of course, we did Public Safety Day, did a fraud presentation here. We do our RAD, our self-defense classes. I see a couple students in the audience. Not going to call you out. We did our National Night Out, of course. We had a pack of scouts that were here just prior to everyone's arrival. And again, it makes them better officers. Being out there, humanized, talking to the community, being those one-on-one actions. We talked about staffing. We have been struggling with that, but right now I have 2 applicants in the back end of the background section, and I've got one that's getting ready to do a ride-along. I make all the applicants do a ride-along so that they know exactly who we are, the way we police, and what our community is. I don't even want an application until they know who we are and that they know they want to do the kind of policing that we do. So I'm happy to say we've got 3 viable candidates at this point, so we're looking to fill those very, very quickly. When we talk about engagement, we've got our Public Safety Committee who you'll be hearing from shortly. They've been outstanding partners since the day I arrived, and I truly appreciate all the hard work that Saul and the crew do, and he's going to give you some updates in a little bit with that. One of the things, again, I harp on sometimes is how fortunate I was to kind of land here. I've had nothing but support and being welcomed from the community, and I greatly appreciated the board and the staff have been just fantastic since I've been here. When we talk about some things I do with Special Olympics, including the Super Plunge, I've raised $15,000. It's a daunting task, but I did a music gig up at Hunter's Hound, and I can't say enough how touched I was by the support I got from the residents that came out and listened to me caterwaul a little bit and donate. And again, Pat at the Stroll has been fantastic about supporting things and getting our message out and getting ways to communicate. Speaking of communicating, I do the chief chats on, I make the chief chats, put them on they're on the website. It's just me in my office rambling for about 3 minutes. I try to keep it less than that on what's going on, what's coming up. So if you don't have anything to do with 3 minutes to kill into your day before you log out of the computer, please check those out. I'll probably be doing one this week. So again, thank you for the support. Thank you for locking your car doors. And we'll see you next year.
Next on the agenda is our financial overview.
Last year's meeting, I had a hand-drawn pie chart of where our money comes from, and it was added to the
To the junior art show.
where it won 2 awards. It won the most childish and least talented. So this year, all I'm doing, I hand typed these numbers. I thought I'd say a few words about the budget, not the numbers in it, but the budget itself, what it really is and how it comes to be. Of course, like any budget broadly, residents can look at it and pour through it and and infer our priorities and our values and our ability to achieve those things. But the budget itself, it's not a narrative, it's not a forecast, it's not a manifesto. What it is a request from the village staff to the Board of Managers for authorization to spend particular amounts of money for particular things. It's created by the village staff, led by the village manager, Shana Davis Cook, the finance director, Dimitri Protos, the director of municipal operations, Jackie Parker, the director of public works, Anthony Young, and the chief of police, John Neske. The Board of Managers and the Financial Review Committee do review the budget in detail, but the professionalism of our staff is such that it's very rare for any major changes to result from that review. We aim for a budget that is conservative within reason. So, for example, we don't plan for a winter with no snow, but we also don't plan for another snowmageddon like we had in 2010. So we have all of these different categories, and within each one, we're trying to be a little bit conservative so that we can handle minor surprises. And the way the numbers work on that sort of thing, when you have a whole bunch of things that each are a little bit conservative, even if some of them turn out not to be conservative enough, usually the result is that the thing as a whole is darn conservative. And so that's what I'm expecting in this case. If you looked at the budget materials at all, as I'm sure you all did and enjoyed it very much, the budget calls for a draw on our reserves of about $1.45 million. And based on our track record, I expect that the actual amount would be about half that would be pulling from reserves. It comes and goes, but in general, that's kind of what to expect. And speaking of reserves, I'd like to say a few words about the village's ability to weather a period of economic uncertainty. Our largest source of funding is the village's share of your state income tax payments. So the ups and downs of financial markets do matter to us and our funding. But we've had strong revenues for the past decade or so. Sometimes that's been because of good income tax results. For a couple of years in there, it was because of the speed cameras before people learned. But now that's relatively a trivial amount of things. But we were fortunate for a long period of time, so we have been able to build up a reserve that amounts to more than 2 years complete budget. If we had no revenue coming from anywhere, we could still keep steaming along for 2.5 years if we wanted to. And besides the fact that we've been able to build up that reserve, the way the state income tax funds are distributed, and don't get me started on that, but the way that they do the distribution means that the money that we're actually getting from the state for income tax really doesn't reflect current financial situation. It's based on the financial situation of about 2 years ago. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if there is a serious downturn in economics for reasons that you can see thought about in the mail or on the news, first of all, we won't really feel it directly in our budget for another year or two. And secondly, when it does affect us, we may have the luxury of a couple of years' perspective to know whether it was just kind of a short blip that we should just swallow and move ahead because we have enough reserves to handle it, or whether it's something more significant that we have to think about restructuring some things. So based on those facts, the size of our reserves and the way the reserves are distributed, I'd say that we are, not only are we financially strong and stable, but I would say there are very few communities that would want to trade places with, that we would want to trade places with in terms of our financial stability. So we are indeed very lucky to live here, and it's not too late to change your mind.
So now we have commission and committee reports. We have the Public Safety Committee, Saul Goodman. See, yeah, there's Saul.
Thank you. Hi. It is a remarkable feature of life in the village that even though we only have some 700 homes, we have our own police force patrolling our streets and our own 24/7 community communication center. As a community, we benefit not just from having these outstanding public safety resources devoted to protecting us 24/7, but also from having local control over those resources. A critical factor in the success of any police agency, but particularly for a village our size, is to have a very strong chief and senior police leadership team. We are quite fortunate to have that in Chief Neske, Lieutenant De Silva, Sergeant Tiedemann, and Public Safety Coordinator Regina Cortez. They are a terrific team, and we are very lucky. I wanted to address tonight a few issues about our committee. The Public Safety Committee serves as a citizens advisory board to the village board and to the chief. We also serve as liaison to the commander for the Bethesda District of the Montgomery County Police. Our members are Byron Anderson, Ollie Davidson, Meredith Griffin, Peter Kilborn, Rachel Mulcahy, Betty O'Connor, Mel Anku, Lisa Sanders, and Ashton Wilshire. During this past year, our primary work has been working with Chief Neske to provide him with resident input on his public safety initiatives and priorities and the proposed budget for the year. One issue that's been front and center for our committee, you've already heard about this from the chief, is the recurring problem of thefts from unlocked vehicles in the village. It is really clear that we have an unacceptably high incidence of unauthorized entries into and thefts from autos. We had 54 incidents last year. We have 11 already. Most of these have involved theft from unlocked vehicles at night, in some cases resulting in the theft of valuables like wallets and laptops. We even had an incident where the vehicle itself was stolen because an unlocked car had a key fob in it. Most concerning about these incidents is really not the property loss, it's the risks that are being created to our community from a public safety standpoint. We are inviting a criminal element into our community at night, and that's just not cool. We need to do a whole lot better. So what our committee did in December was to send out a letter to all village residents in which we made 3 simple requests. I'm going to reiterate them here tonight, particularly for our new residents. First, lock your vehicle doors every time you park and remove valuables and anything that looks like it might contain a valuable. The chief has already explained why. Second, report any suspicious activity, even if it just seems a little unusual, to the communication center. You can feel a little reluctance to do that. Yes, you should, That's why we have a communication center. That's why we have our own police force. It takes a matter of minutes for the police to show up at your home. If you have an emergency, call 911, but otherwise call the village office. And 3, consider installing security devices like doorbell cameras, sensor lighting, and other things like that around your home. If we do have an incident, they're very helpful for investigating it after the fact. Our committee asks that you please take these simple protective steps, not just for yourself and your family, but for all of your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have our open membership committees. First, the Parks and Green Spaces Committee. Margot Kingston is going to come up. Thank you, Margot.
I chair the Parks and Green Spaces Committee. It's a great committee. We have a hardworking committee members, Carol Coffin, Susan Dixon, Jory Juergens, Susan Kilborn, Leslie McKay, and myself. And other people who might be interested in joining, we could still use it because we have a lot of work to do. In any case, I also want to thank Jacqueline Parker for this past year guiding us through all the things that came up because it's been a very important busy year. And we really appreciate her help. We monitor the parks and green spaces. We look at the maintenance that might be needed. And maybe there's an improvement that might be needed. We check out the benches as well as the various plants and flowers and trees and such, and see how things are going along. We have to choose plants that thrive in well-shaded areas in many cases. And the soil is clay-rich, as we all know, who've done any digging in our own gardens. But we always try to get native flowers, as these native plants, I should say, because these require less maintenance and provide a familiar habitat and food source for our native wildlife. This last year, much of the committee's deliberations were focused on plans for the upcoming major reconstructions of the buffer park. That is the park on our west side that extends beyond Belmont Avenue and continues between Grove and Park Street. It's a very popular walking park, partly because it contains an exit to Friendship Heights, but also because the park is a pleasant sidewalk for a stroll to the Western Grove Park. So those of us who live in the western part of the village should really use that park and also do it. It's very, very popular, and that's wonderful. Since the buffer park is adjacent to Saks parking lot, we have to work closely to try to screen the park from the automobiles, because that's a more peaceful environment. And so I think this coming year will be particularly working hard on that particular problem, because we need to get the type of trees that are interesting and part of the park environment, but also will provide a good screen, and we have all kinds of things that require these two. We've started working with the administration on this. And the tree screen should extend beyond the buffer park, which adjacent to Saks Avenue, as well as along Belmont Avenue outside of the park as you go to the north. The committee has been working with village administration and CPJ engineering firm to develop a plan for the selection of plants for the buffer area. And I think that this letter did mention a little bit of that in her talk earlier, that this is going to be a big deal for this year. In case, we're very happy to work with them. We're looking very hard for native plants that would grow well in this shady, clay-rich area. And it will lead to a lot of enjoyment for all of us. The committee has been outspoken in maintenance of other parks, including the popular large Triangle Park, which is used for people for kids playing games, for little kids doing things. I mean, we have some of our own village parties there, picnics. You all know that park. It is well used, and it also requires a lot of maintenance. And that's part of the deal. And that's it for me. I think if you want to hear more about the parks, you could look me up or read my report.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a report from the Committee for Seniors, Betty O'Connor.
My grandson calls, I tell him I'm like a turtle. He calls me, no, Grandma, it's a tortoise. I think this is the first time I've ever done this. I usually operate in groups. I don't come up. Anyway, I sort of wear two hats. I'm the chairman of the senior committee, but I also, for years, I've been a member of Parents at Home. I helped to start that many years ago. And 15 years ago, we started having a lot of events. And COVID has done this past year, or the past few years, COVID did a number on us. And we were used to have lots of events here in the village. We cut them out completely for, I think, about 3 years. And we've started up again a little bit now. And first of all, before I do anything else, I just want to thank you all, thank the board for inviting us and allowing us to have these events for seniors. And then also for the staff, for Jen, and all the people in here who help set up the things for me. No matter what I ask them to do, they say, with a smile, they do it. So anyway, let me see if I can quit. This year we had our usual St. Patrick's Day party, which, you don't have to be ours. I just ask you when you come to the event to wear green. And we always have our Irish coffee, and we always have entertainment, and it's a fun party. But we have very few people in the seniors in this village who come. We have a few, but very few, and I don't understand why. So anyway, and that's the Christmas party. Then we also had a man come who builds harps internationally, and he came and showed us how he builds them and plays them, and then played for us. And we had a professional group of violin and flutes, and they were from Baltimore. They came all the way from Baltimore. We had a stacked group for that. That was our big. I guess we had more people there than any other. But anyway, and then we had a Flag Day celebration. That's another thing. We all love our flag. We had people bring flags with fewer than, I think the one that was 47 stars or so. That's really interesting. And let's see, but I'm trying to think. I wrote this down, and then the other one that we had we partnered with Chief Nesky. This is something everybody should do. He gave a wonderful program with fraud and prevention. And we don't think about that. But he is so great, and he's so knowledgeable, and he's so willing to give his services. So we thank him for that. I have to say that we offer the programs with Chevy Chase at Home and the village, and I just would encourage you to try to come. Look, Jen puts us in the village, and the choir, and you'd be surprised. I don't know how, I guess about 5 years ago, we even had the Montgomery County bring their canine corps and show us what they do. And one of our members was saved by that canine corps. He was a man who was older, and he got up early and left the house before his wife. She couldn't find him. Nobody could find him. And finally the way we found it was I brought the canine corps and realized that he had gone from his house to the bus stop. And so they chased him down to town to his old, he was very mentally challenged, and he'd gone to his old office downtown and he found him. But they wouldn't have found him otherwise. So anyway, so I just thank you again. Thank you for having me, and just come once in a while.
Yes, thank you. And we have our election supervisors report from Maggie Marcus. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Maggie Marcus. I reside on Hesketh Street. I'm going to read this to you in Spanish. No, I'm just kidding. He's still awake. But I am going to read it to you. So this is the election supervisor's report. There's 4 items. Number 1, early in the year, the election supervisors confirmed that 4 board members' terms were ending in June 2025. Beginning in February and through the first 2 weeks in March, we notified village residents of the vacancies and the requirements to become a candidate using the crier, village emails, and the village website. This information included a short summary of the financial disclosure procedures in order to assure potential candidates that this step was not unduly onerous. It also contained very specific instructions as to how interested residents could obtain further information and all forms and documents necessary to file a certificate of candidacy and financial disclosure statement. 2, following the March 15th deadline for candidates to submit their certificates of candidacy and financial disclosure statements, the supervisors confirmed that there were 4 candidates for the 4 open positions on the board. All 4 candidates had submitted the required certificates of candidacy and financial disclosure statements by the March 15th deadline, and these have been reviewed and endorsed as duly filed by the Village Ethics Commission. The 4 candidates were the incumbents: Gary Crockett, Lou Morseberger, Linda Willard, and David Winstead?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And David Winstead. Because the number of candidates and the number of vacancies were equal, there is no need for an election to be held in May. Number 3, pursuant to the procedures specified in the village charter, the election supervisors hereby declare the following 4 candidates elected to the Chevy Chase Village Board of Managers: Gary Crockett, Lou Morseberger, Linda Willard, and David Winstead. Number 4, the 2024-2025 election supervisors are Robert Brokesmith, Joanne Kairos, Maggie Marcus, Mary Sheehan, who's the chair, and Nancy Wilkinson. Thank you.
Thank you. And the election supervisor will be helping us with the board opening for the appointments. We'll follow that procedure. So it says public discussion period. Do we have anybody want to talk about anything? Hearing no public discussion.
Ms. Lancaster.
Yes.
I don't have the number in front of me. It's on the older 17, 18.
I thought it was 20.
Where you're counting from. Yeah, 18, just over $18 million. Yeah, we have very, very strict state laws about how we can invest those funds. And it amounts to there's only about, as a practical matter, only about 3 ways you can do it. One is there is something called the Maryland Local Government Investment Pool, MILGIP, which is it's run by a bank, but it's a state sponsored fund, and some of our neighbors just put all their money into that. It's a simple thing to do. It's liquid. It's easy to move it in and out. We have chosen to roughly half and half, put half of our money in that and half of it in U.S. Treasury obligations. And it turns out it's kind of hard to do that. Most banks and financial institutions don't want to mess around with municipalities because there are special rules. We can't buy treasuries directly. There's just an individual can, a corporation can, a municipality cannot. And I could go into the reasons for that if you want, but it just basically means. But we did find UBS has a private wealth management organization in town that does have people that know how to work with municipalities. So we've been doing that with them. But that's it. We don't have the option of, if we think there's going to be a big downturn or a big upturn or something, we don't have the option of moving things into stocks or out of stocks or anything like that. It's just very circumscribed. So it is invested. It's invested as boringly as it is possible to be, and I'm fine with that. Well, it depends. Oh, and I should have said the other thing is FDIC secured CDs we can, and I'm in the process of trying to kill the last couple of those that we've had because we had half a dozen of it, probably 8 or 10, and all the banks that we originally set them up with got bought by other banks, and so I've been just to fill to cash out these things when they mature. I'm gonna have to drive up to Baltimore next week because that's where that bank is now that was originally somewhere else, and it's just not worth our time and effort because you can't do more than $250,000 on one of those. That's a longer answer than you wanted probably, but we yeah.
Gives you a good sense of the limitations.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. So, oh yeah, Saul has his hand up.
One thing to the village staff and to the residents for volunteering, but we all owe for one service and for all of you a great deal of thanks. And in particular, this has been a very challenging year for you folks, and we're in great financial shape for our new residents. That has not always been the case. Thank you for your financial stewardship and for leading us through a very challenging time.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate that. So I think for the adoption of the budget, we need to move into does anybody have a motion to adjourn the annual meeting to convene a business meeting for the Board of Managers?
I move to adjourn the annual meeting to enter into a business meeting of the Board of Managers for the purpose of adopting the budget and tax levy ordinance for fiscal year 2026.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So we have resolution number 40225. Does anybody have a motion about that?
I move.
Go ahead.
I move to approve resolution number 040225 as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're at that point.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much. The
Thank you,
111th annual meeting.
Great.